Okay, hi everyone. So I want to thank everyone that came out to the Arm Yourself Against Cancer workshop. We had a great time, great turnout, lots of great positive feedback. But near the end of the workshop, there was just so much information, and for me it was difficult to fit everything in, and I didn't want to keep everyone too long. So I wanted to share everyone this new video here, which is kind of a really big picture thing that I wanted to put together at the end, a lot of the nutritional factors and things like that, and hopefully I'm going to remember everything I want to say by putting this all together for you. So this might be a little long, but hopefully it'll be very informative, and please share the video if this helps. So a couple of things. If we can see this here, as I mentioned in the workshop, we have the tumor growth here, so the cells are kind of growing out of control. This would be the cell layer here, and as I mentioned, this is the blood. So we have the red blood cells bringing oxygen to our tissues. So here's the oxygen here, and the oxygen is diffusing, going by diffusion through the cells, but it can only go so far. And then the top layer of the tumor, getting further and further away from the oxygen supply, actually needs a new blood supply, so it's going to send out those angiogenic factors that'll cause the blood vessels to actually start to grow towards the tumor, so it can feed more oxygen directly to the tumor so it can continue to grow. So a couple of factors nutritionally that's kind of important. Remember how, if you remember, I talked about the membrane of the cell being the brain of the cell. And all our cells have to have a communication between each other. A lot of the cells in the lining of in our body, they're actually stuck together by these tight junctions, they call them. But there's a lot of intercommunication between the cells. And on the membrane of the cell, there's these little channels that allow information in and out that can go in to affect the DNA. So the channels are actually influenced by calcium. So if you might have heard of calcium channel blockers and things like that, so they're trying to interfere with this natural process of the body. But calcium is very important as a mineral that is important for that communication between the cells. So very often there's a decrease in calcium, and so there's a decrease in communication between the cells. When there's lack of communication, this cell doesn't know that this cell has been dividing 50 million times, and then this one says, well, I'm going to keep dividing too, and so that lack of communication causes this excess growth. So a decrease in calcium is a big factor. Now, nutritionally, I'm not going to tell you to go drink a lot of dairy products and cheese and things like that. I'll get into that in a little bit. I'm almost not that worried about the source of the calcium. There's something else that you need to do that'll help your body pull more calcium out of the good food that you're eating. So that's one thing about the growth of that thing there. So important factor, something that can actually inhibit or diminish the capability of this new blood supply to the tumor is something called phytonutrients. And phytonutrients is a big topic, and it's a very specific thing that's found in a lot of your fruits and vegetables, basically. So remember I was mentioning the dark green stuff, cruciferous vegetables, kale, kohlrabi, Swiss chard, broccoli, cauliflower, all those kind of, Brussels sprouts, big one, all those kind of things, they have a really big impact on supplying phytonutrients, which will help prevent that excess or the extra blood supply to feed the tumor, which is very helpful. The other thing I was mentioning, as you remember too, glucose. So we're going to call that sugar, but it's actually the glucose molecule. Remember that the cancer cells are specifically obligate glucose users. And as I mentioned near the end of the workshop, there could be a whole big branch of the fact that how those glucose molecules are spinning, which could it puts a big emphasis on the fact that it's processed sugars and not necessarily sugars found in fruits and vegetables that are such the big culprit. And if you remember from the workshop, I mentioned that information there. But the fact is, decreasing sugars in your system is going to have a big impact on everything, you know, as far as insulin being a mitogenic hormone causing excess growth. So maintaining positive insulin levels in the right range, that'll help. And so if you're decreasing your sugar intake and your simple carbohydrate intake, that's going to keep your sugar levels low, and that'll help prevent feeding the growth of the cancer cells. So that's one part. So now as far as, remember I talked about this the calcium problem being low. So if you're worried about sources of calcium, you know, good sources could be like sardines, sesame seeds, all the green leafy vegetables, almonds, those kind of things. They all have good sources of calcium. So if you're going to go to dairy, our ideal recommendation would be grass-fed, hormone-free dairy. That would be super ideal, and raw would even be better if you can find that, because the way they're pasteurizing and the cows are fed so many hormones and stuff. We talked about those endocrine disruptors, and there's so many antibiotics and hormones in the regular meat and cheese supply that it's really such a drastic thing that it probably won't be helping the situation too much. But if you can find, if you know a farmer and you can go and say, milk that cow and give me the milk, that would be your idea. But anyway, so so I don't want you to worry too much about if you're we use this term, it's called JERF. And there's a great guy called Sean Croxton. I don't know if he came up with this, but I like it. So the acronym here stands for Just Eat Real Food. So what is real food? Go back 10,000 years before there was industrialization, before there was technology, and before there was farming. Whatever you could find, pull out of the ground, pull off a tree, kill, or eat yourself, that would be real food. So we got to keep in that aspect, and that would be considered real food in this scenario. So when you're eating real food, let's say you're eating some good, veggies and some seeds and things like that, those contain calcium. But how can you draw more calcium out of your gut? The big factor is something called vitamin D3. So vitamin D3 magnifies the ability of your intestines to pull calcium into the blood, into the circulation. But there's another factor for supplying that or bringing the calcium to the right places so it's not being deposited in your artery walls and making them hard. There's another vitamin called K2, which is very important. And also something most people don't know, it's called vitamin F, which is more the omega-3 fatty acids and those kind of things. I didn't mention it in the workshop, but there's actually a mammalian source, not a fish, not from krill oil, that I prefer. And if you're interested in that, send an email to the office and I can mention that to you. If some of the people in my office already know what I'm talking about. But those omega-3s are important for the transportation of calcium into the body as well. But the K2 is very important so that the calcium goes to the right place. So it's actually going to take the calcium from the blood, bring it right into the bones where it needs to be, or into the tissues or into the muscles for the heart muscle where it needs to go for proper conduction. So one of the problems is, where can you get this K2? Well, the interesting thing is, grass-fed cows actually produce they make K1 into K2. So if you're getting milk from a grass-fed cow, or you're eating grass-fed cow's meat, or sometimes chickens that are actually free range, they eat grass too. They actually make vitamin K2 from vitamin K1. So that's very important for the deposition of the calcium in the right place, because if you don't have that and you're taking a lot of calcium in, it'll just get deposited everywhere else except in the right place. It'll go on the bones and you'll cause spurs, or between the joints, and that'll cause arthritic changes and gout type problems and those kind of things. So that's a big issue. So now getting back to the vitamin D3, what vitamin D3 does from the gut, it helps your gut. It magnifies the ability of the gut to bring calcium into the body so that this communication between the cells is proper. So where do you get vitamin D3? Well, the biggest source, most people know this now, is the sun coming in and going through your skin to affect the molecule that's inside your body. Does anyone know what that molecule is? Something that's been vilified for a long time. It's called cholesterol. So artificially lowering your cholesterol is one of the worst things you can do. There's a reason it's high, and we always talked about getting to the cause. But cholesterol is a massively important molecule for every function in your cell. Most of your brain is fat. It's important for your nerve system and everything else, but it's massively important for making vitamin D. Vitamin D3. So when the sunlight hits it, the UV rays kind of convert cholesterol into vitamin D3, which is a massive hormone. All the cells in your body, there's only two elements, or two hormones that affect every single cell in your body. That would be a thyroid hormone and the vitamin D3 hormone. Those are the two things that affect every single cell in the body, has receptors for those two things. So that's massively important. So you do not want to artificially lower your cholesterol for any reason, because that's a massive hit to that. So the other thing is, you don't want to be putting on a whole pile of sunscreen and going out in the sun, because it's the vitamin is the UVB ray that will actually be, I call it B for beneficial. That's the one that will burn your skin, but it also causes the beneficial change into the cholesterol. So the cholesterol will actually become vitamin D3, which will help your body pull more calcium from the gut to bring it into the body to help the signaling. And also vitamin D3 has a billion other great effects all through the body, genetic representation, differentiation of the cells, etc. So if you look at some of these things here, vitamin D is a fat-soluble hormone, vitamin F is fat, vitamin A and E are also very important for this whole process. So D, E, A, and K, all of those vitamins are fat-soluble vitamins. So we actually want more fat in our diet. What? Isn't fat bad for you? Not if it's the right kind of fat. So they've always been telling us don't eat fat to get fat, and that's a bunch of malarkey. So there's actually a lot of good fats. So you're going to get good fats from grass-fed hormone-free cows. The butter from grass-fed hormone-free cows is an excellent source. Coconut butter, coconut oil, massively important. Coconut oil is great. So you actually want a lot of those good fats in your system, okay? So don't get all hung up on this saturated fat is bad for you and stuff. It's actually very important if it's the right, good kind of fat, okay? You want to be avoiding trans fats and cooking with the wrong oils and stuff like that. So if you can cook with coconut oil, that's one of the more stable oils, and that's a really beneficial oil. You can add it to your smoothies. It's always good to have a fat source anytime you're making a smoothie because it helps the transport of these nutrients. So if you're putting berries and your protein powder and all that stuff in your smoothie, you also want to put some coconut oil or add almond butter or sun butter, which would be a good one. Those help the transportation of the nutrients into your system. Fat soluble, very important. So that's part of the big picture here. Now the other thing that's important for the digestion of your foods is a nerve coming from your brain, which comes down and affects most of your stomach, your liver, most of your guts. It's called the vagus nerve. And that's where chiropractic can come in very importantly, because the vagus nerve coming out from the brain is the nerve of your parasympathetic nervous system. That's the one that helps produce more acid in your stomach. And your stomach needs a lot of good acid to break down the proteins and the elements that you're eating to have it as good nutrients for your food. If you're stuck in what we call the stress response, that's actually preventing vagal function, and you're stuck in the fight or flight, and you have less gut blood flow, and you'll actually have what we call more gut permeability. The lining of your stomach is not tight. It actually starts to open up, and it allows things that shouldn't be in your bloodstream into your bloodstream. And you get the famous leaky gut, as it's been called. And so there's a researcher, and I think he's an Italian one, Fasano, he says if you have a leaky gut, that also becomes a leaky brain. So poisons getting into your blood from here will also have an effect on your brain and cause negative consequences to your brain, which is also drastic for this process here. Okay? So the liver, massively important for your detoxification of your body. Remember how we went through the different toxins, endocrine disruptors, heavy metal poison, amalgams, mercury in vaccines, mercury in your teeth, all that kind of stuff. The estrogenic hormones, xenoestrogens from pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, all those kind of things in the environment. All that kind of stuff, your liver has the big dramatic role of detoxifying your body. So you need to have your liver cleaned out occasionally. So one of the things I recommended, occasionally give your whole digestive system a break by doing that thing we call intermittent fasting, where you just periodically, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, you choose a day where you're going to stop eating after dinner, and you're not really going to eat anything for as long as you can, all the way until the next day. So you're giving your whole system a break. The liver's going to have more ability to detox, etc. Another way to help your liver detox, you're providing potassium to it. And that also comes from the nutrients which will give you the phytonutrients. So kale, just the dark green leafy vegetables. The more vegetables you can get, the more it helps your liver kind of squeeze out the toxins and clean itself out, so it'll clean out your system as well. Okay? So that's most of the stuff I wanted to recommend. So once again, as I was talking about the sun coming through the skin, everyone's worried about, well, isn't sun bad for you and that kind of thing. No. The massive benefits you're going to get from having more vitamin D3 are hugely outweighing any kind of potential damage that the sun is causing to hypothetically cause problems with your skin. So Obviously, we're not telling you to go out and burn yourself every day. That, you know, a logical amount of sun exposure, and if you are going to be out there for a long time, you should go to Dr. Mercola's site or sites that have natural sunscreens that maybe contain natural zinc or some other things, or coconut oil and those kind of things, which can actually help you, you know, block out after a while. But a good amount of full body sun exposure, the more you can get your body exposed to it, as soon as it's sunny, get out there and get exposed to that. So those are some of the main things I wanted to talk about, to kind of bring in the whole pieces, the healthy fats. So start integrating healthy fats, the coconut oil, the saturated fats from, if you can get grass, you know, going to the healthy butcher, you're getting the, you know, the grass-fed cows and those kind of things, very important. If you're a hunter, you're killing your own food. That's probably the best way to get a natural source, because it's probably not laden with pesticides and those kind of things, even though it's in the environment, but that would be your best source, you know, fish and fowl and those kind of things. Remember, I talked about butter as well. Butter's a great thing if you're getting, you know, organic, grass-fed butter. That's the best stuff. Very, very important. The phytonutrients, the sugar, making sure you're decreasing the sugar, the cholesterol, putting that whole piece together. And remember, the whole thing where chiropractic fits into this is that, especially the technique we use, it has a big effect on helping your parasympathetic nervous system come up to the forefront to help reduce the negative effects of being in the fight or flight or stress response, which basically shuts down all the important functions of your body, your brain, your gut, your reproductive systems, etc. All those get put to the side to keep you in survival. And you don't want to be in survival, you want to be in growth and repair. And the way we do our work here, it helps the brain and the vagus nerve reconnect with your system. It helps healing, helps optimize this system, increasing your stomach acidity for proper digestion. All those things get all put together. So I think that was it. I know there was a lot of stuff I wanted to kind of put all those pieces together as far as the nutritional part of it. And so once again, lots of vegetables as much as you can, lots of, you know, lots of salads every day. Strawberries actually are very good. If you want strawberries, you're going to want to get them organic. But as far as helping binding or decreasing absorption of toxins from your food, especially fish, strawberries have a really unique factor that all the seeds are sort of on the outside and they have this interesting mesh of fibers on the inside of them. That fiber system inside strawberries are very good at absorbing heavy metals and toxins. So if you're going to have some organic strawberries, maybe before you have some fish, something like that, that would actually be very beneficial. And our bodies, and there's actually some new research, even though fish are kind of laden with a lot of heavy metals like mercury, even with us, a lot of mercury in our mouth, they're actually finding that most organic systems will use selenium, which is a very important antioxidant, to bind the mercury to kind of protect the body. And they're finding that in fish, even though they may have a high mercury content, they're actually bound to a lot of the selenium too, which may make it less harmful to us than we thought. So that's another big factor to consider. So those are a lot of things to kind of put the whole big picture together. Once again, there was a big response to the cancer workshop. I couldn't putting all this at the end. That would have been another half hour way too long to just keep people there for too long. But hopefully this helps put a big picture thing together. And any questions, you can always email the office at info@networkfamilycarecenter.com. Hopefully this, it's not too crazy now. Hopefully you could follow it as I went through the whole thing. And the response was pretty impressive for the workshop, so we probably will try to do it again at some point in the future, and I'll see if I can get Melanie and share their expertise as well in those areas. And we look forward to seeing you once again. If you like the video, please share it, and let as many people know as you can to see if we can arm ourselves against cancer. All right? Thank you very much for your attention. Take care.